July 25th, the day before the start of the Olympics, even though we mentioned soccer is underway, rugby, a few other things, but the official opening ceremony is tomorrow. Each and every Thursday, we get a chance to check in with the Athletics' Sam Amick, who, let's find out where Sam is at the moment. Good morning, Sam, from here. What time of day is it where you are?
Good morning, Jason Ross. It is afternoon here in lovely Paris, France. It is 4 p.m. I am currently wandering around the media center, surrounded by hundreds of media members. I'm sure thousands if you count beyond this room, but glad to be with you, man. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I hope is this, I know this is a work vacation, but isn't this family as well? Have you been able to make the most of all this?
We had a wonderful vacation for the past 2 weeks, hence my Sactown sports absences. We went from London to Switzerland to Germany to Austria and back to London. So we've been making the rounds, and then the family headed home, and then I'll be out here on the Olympic trail for the next few weeks.
Is there a highlight of the Amick family trip? That sounds great where you've been. Is there a personal highlight there?
I think we all agree. We would go with the experience in, I'm forgetting the name of the town, but we were in the Alps in Switzerland, which is a place, to be honest, that I never knew if I would get to, and I highly recommend if anybody has the means to pull it off. It was incredible. But riding these trotty bikes is what they're called, down a fairly steep ascent in true little Alps towns where you have adults and kids alike. And then I would explain a trotty bike by just explaining that it has no pedals because it is a one-way trip that is aided by gravity. And so it's no pedals and nothing but brakes and flying around. And we did have one little accident. Thankfully, my sister was okay, but she took a pretty decent tumble. But that, from a sheer adrenaline standpoint, that was definitely the highlight of the trip.
That sounds like a balance between fear and fun on that, Sam. And you had one minor casualty there, but if that's all, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, no, thankfully not an actual casualty.
Yes.
But listen, my older sister, I give her a lot of love and credit. She survived it, but we had a moment. We're getting in the weeds, but we were flying down the hill and we stopped and realized we were down a man, so to speak, and then found out that she was climbing back up the hill after taking a tumble. But no, it was fun stuff.
Good. Curious on obviously you're there in Paris. Just getting around Olympic security. We know there's a lot of heightened stuff, and we want everything safety wise first. Just the navigating part of getting to and from venues. How hectic is that for you?
Still a work in progress. I mean, I got in yesterday from London, and the unique part of this experience that is definitely a handful, if you will, is the fact that basketball is in Lille, France, and not Paris. So to give you an idea, I'm staying out in Lille until the 4th of August. So there's quite a few media members from the U.S. doing the same thing, where you, like today, if you want to go down to Paris where Team USA is practicing, then you have to take a high-speed train that is about 80 minutes long and not very cheap. But so the logistics are tricky. Safety-wise, everything seems good so far. Certainly hope tomorrow with the opening ceremonies that those go off really well, down the Seine River. So, the Olympics they're a pleasure. I've only done one before, so it's a professional highlight for sure, but they come with just a level of chaos that you kind of just have to deal with, and eventually you find your stride.
I know you're just arriving, so maybe you don't have the full accuracy of everything there, but what's kind of the tone with Team USA? Look, they're the favorite. They've got a great team, but it's been a little wobbly on some of their, prep to get here. What do you feel like the tone is of the squad as they're getting ready to go for gold?
Well, Jay, you're making me feel better about what I'm writing today with your question, because truthfully, I don't, on the NBA side, I typically have a good feel for what people want to read about and learn about, right? I'm trying to gauge the level of interest in the national team, but your question, I think, speaks to what is front and center, which is that there's a level of concern that is pretty impossible to miss. So today, I went to the national team's practice. It's a facility, in downtown Paris. It's actually the same gym where Victor Wembanyama was playing about a year and a half ago, kind of where he came from. And Steve Kerr, the national team coach for the second straight day, was very critical of the way Team USA has played. And he was critical yesterday, but yesterday he focused more so on the 4-point win over Germany. Today he kind of looped in the South Sudan game where they won by 1, and just very plainly stated that they had been outplayed from an energy and effort standpoint, and even detailed, guys jogging down the break, getting back on defense, not boxing people out, like really, really basic stuff. And I thought the context he shared was interesting. He went out of his way to say, like, we're not traveling around anymore, meaning like, all the exhibition games, as you know, they went from from Vegas to Abu Dhabi to London. And so a lot of travel, and it seemed like Steve was basically saying, all right, all your excuses are out the window. We are playing with fire here, and it's time to maximize what we can be before we get embarrassed, because we know it's an all or nothing venture for Team USA. It's just gold or nothing.
You know him a little bit. Speaking of Kurt, like, did you gauge this, Sam, as a level of concern, or is this kind of one of those, hey, coaches, little prodding through the media, like, we gotta sharpen up here? Like, where do you feel like he was falling in line there?
No, it felt pretty genuine. It felt like, the column I'm writing right now just says that I think probably his intent was to sound the alarms, because I think he did that with his comments, but I think he's trying to sound the alarms internally. And there's just such an interesting, unique pressure that comes with this challenge, because he also highlighted that, an NBA team that, wins the championship or gets to the finals is going to wind up playing like 120 games, you know what I mean, potentially. And you have time to start the season 0-2 or 0-3 and not have it really be that big of a deal. And you can tell that, like, amid all the pomp and circumstance of the games, and LeBron is getting the honor of carrying the flag for all of the Americans, and Steph Curry is enjoying his first Olympics, all these things around the edges, the experience, if you will, of being in the games, you can tell that Steve is sitting there in the middle saying, guys, like, if we blow it here, like all the happiness, all the fun, all the joy is going to disappear. And he knows that there's a Serbian team waiting for him on Sunday that they blew out in their exhibition game, but that was with no Bogdan Bogdanovic. I believe some other starters didn't play as well. Nikola Jokic certainly played and was mostly, looked like himself. But yeah, I think Steve, I mean, there's a sense that I was going to say that he's hurting cats. It's not like that, but I think he just getting these guys to lock in and make sure that they don't come out of here with any regrets is a big part of his job.
I don't know how big of a story it is going, or how much it'll continue, but Kevin Durant not being fully available. What's kind of his status looking like as we go forward?
Yeah, I mean, still non-committal when it comes to whether he's going to play on Sunday. He was asked about it today, and they indicated that he would be practicing today. We got to see a little bit of practice, but not the scrimmage that they supposedly had. But nobody came out and said we'll have Kevin for sure on Sunday, and that's a major issue. The Americans in years past, a lot of times, and Carmelo Anthony played a big part of this, is whenever they seem to be struggling with the style of play with FIBA, the 40-minute games and the rules changes and the different three-point line, they would have these bucket getters who, just reminded you that, like, even if they're not as comfortable as they would have been in the NBA game, they can just be dominant. And Melo used to do that. Mm-hmm. Durant has done that. He was the all-time leading scorer for the program. They need him back because LeBron and the way he's carried the team late has been fun to watch. But, and they've hinted at this stuff, it's come a little bit at the expense of the offense, having the kind of rhythm and flow that I think Steve Kerr would want. And the defense hasn't been up to par in those two games that I mentioned before. But, as far as Kevin goes, it's still kind of an open question.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up LeBron. I was talking about him yesterday. Look, I know there's a lot of people in this area, anything Lakers, you just, you frown upon. And I'm not asking people to like LeBron, but I hope they appreciate what he's doing. I mean, still, Sam. I mean, I just marvel at him. Like, he did save the day the last couple of games, and he's going to be 40, and he's playing again in the Olympics, and it's just he's still great when he needs to be, and that's. I mean, I think it's just a marvel to watch. I don't know how you feel about him.
Yeah, no question. I mean, that even if let's say he had a minimal impact the rest of the way. Because honestly, that happens a lot on the national team. Big time stars, like these guys are all stars. So, I don't think LeBron is going to continue carrying them the way he has. But even if he didn't have any more games like that, these are some pretty special memories for a guy whose career is obviously legendary already. And it's not really, to me, qualified with hey, that's pretty good for a almost 40-year-old. Like, it's just great stuff, no matter what his age has been. And really, I mean, he has helped them avoid disaster, because even taking a loss in exhibition play, I think the optics of it would have been really bad, and it, maybe raises the confidence of some of the teams that they're going to face in pool play coming up here. So fun to watch. He seems to be soaking it in and having a humility kind of about the experience and his part in it. So, I mean, there's so much to enjoy, I think, about this group. And then it just, again, Jay, it comes with this one massive caveat, which is like the history books are not going to focus on all that fun stuff if they don't get the job done.
Yeah. And the other reality is, we've been saying it for a while. We may send some of our best players, and you can argue if it's the absolute best team, but the team is stacked. The rest of the world, Sam, is more than caught up. Like, the gap is just, I mean, there's a lot of good teams. Canada's loaded. We saw what Germany did the other day. You mentioned some of the other contenders. I mean, I think they should be favorites, but this won't be easy for them, will it?
No, it won't be. And it was interesting on that front to see the different tone that different people were taking. So we talked about Steve Kerr. So Steph Curry and Kevin Durant they had more of a massive press conference with, worldwide media today as well, right? And I forget what the question was, but they actually had a kind of a fun, lighthearted moment where Steph, and this relates to what you're hitting on, Steph turned to Durant, and it was almost as if they were having a private conversation together in some room, where he said to Kevin, he goes, "Hey, you see that stat out there about how the Dream Team in '92 only faced 9 NBA players, and we're going to face, it was either 64 or 65 NBA players." And Kevin literally finished his sentence because he had seen the stat. And these guys, they were contextualizing why it's not probably fair to expect them to be as dominant as the 92 team was, which, they won by an average of almost 44 points. So that, that's the conversation right now, right? Is yes, the rest of the world was caught up, but, didn't we think with LeBron and Steph Curry and again, Durant's not playing yet, but Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker and all the way down the line, that they would have a little slice of the dominant American legacy again. And so far, it's not been the case.
I know, game plans and things change, and maybe there's not too much to read on this, but former King Tyrese Halliburton didn't play at all the other day. He doesn't seem to be getting as much run, and the roster's stacked. So, look, they're trying to do their best to win this thing, but any read on that? Is it just kind of caught up in the numbers game for Halliburton?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that was to be expected, especially when they're just not defending the way they want to. Tyrese is going to be the first guy to go on that front. And I mean, shoot, you talk about Durant coming back, that's going to have a crunch on the roster, to be sure. It wouldn't shock anybody to see Tyrese, I think, not get much, if any, time. Even somebody as great as Devin Booker, I wonder, what the rotations are going to look like, because we were talking about it today. Drew Holiday is such an important defender. And again, if you're going to have that be a big part of your identity, then, maybe Holiday continues to start. But, if Durant knocks Booker out of the starting lineup because Kevin's a two-way player, then we'll see what the rest of it looks like. But, yeah, I mean, Tyrese he's an accomplished young player, certainly not yet on the level of some of these guys. And I don't think, as long as Steph Curry is healthy, that's a big surprise.
Are those guys, look, I mean, you can make the argument in some of the other sports that are competing in the Olympics that they're professionals in their sport, but I mean, these are household names. Are these guys treated differently? Are you getting a sense of that out there, that they're different than the other Olympians? Do you have that vibe at all yet?
Well, I mean, there's always the kind of the, I was going to say annual, it's every 4 years, the discussion about how they don't stay in the Olympic Village with the other athletes. And it becomes a little mini controversy every single time. And that was brought up today. And, I thought they did a good job of saying, like, okay, fine, we don't stay there for reasons that, really they're incredibly famous, and security wise, it's just a different calculus than it is for another American athlete. But their messaging is very much like, out here, they're the ones in awe of a lot of the different athletes that they never get a chance to see up close. Steph Curry talked about that, and how, you do kind of feel like you're just another person representing your country. I even noticed on Steph's Instagram feed, when they were in London, he had a picture of his visit to go see the Big Ben clock tower. And I'm sure he had ample security around him, but the picture just looked like a regular dude with like a golf hat on, as if he was able to just walk around. And that kind of surprised me, because it seemed like he was moving a little differently than he would be maybe back in the States. I think that is the fun part of the Olympics, right? Is that, once the national team made that choice to start using pros instead of the college players, it kind of changed the landscape on that front. But it seems like a lot of these pros are kind of, putting themselves on the same level.
I mean, I know it's for the country, which is kind of a phenomenon here. And, there's something about trying to win a gold medal. But, Sam, you spend the whole year covering, LeBron going against Steph, Tatum going against Embiid. And now they're teammates. Like, it seems pretty seamless. But, how much are those guys, do you get a vibe of them talking about their battles, or, the free agency that happened, or the year ahead, or are they just kind of all locked in on this goal right now?
It's funny, because I think they're locked in. It's almost disappointing, if I'm being honest with you. like the fan part of me, I guess, that enjoys basketball. Like, you would hope that, that Kevin Durant is having a beer with Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and saying, man, I'm sorry for how this went down when we played together with the Warriors, or, you know what I mean? Like there's so much history. We always assume, as you mentioned Steph and LeBron, like the final battles, the history on this team. And this was a topic of discussion at the press conference today. It is really interesting. You got Eric Spoelstra, who obviously did a great job coaching LeBron James, won 2 championships, but ultimately said goodbye to him, as coach of the Heat, where LeBron left Spo and the Heat. There's a lot of connective tissue between a lot of these players. And I thought that Durant made a hell of a point today, talking about how, the Americans have a lack of continuity and a lack of chemistry that is born out of the fact that they've been together for 3 weeks. And he was basically hopeful that some of the history between all these different parties was going to help them in the end, because they have a lot of layers to their relationships. Even seeing Steph and Kevin up there on the podium together, strikes memories of all the time they spent together. And it's a pretty cool, unique space where they can temporarily, slide back onto the same team and try to maximize this experience. But to your question, I don't think I think they're just honestly enjoying themselves, having a good time playing ball. I don't feel like they're behind the scenes, telling old war stories.
Because that's what I'm with you. I kind of vision that, like, old war stories, or even just marveling at, hey, can you believe this guy signed for this, and this team added this guy, and maybe they're doing some of that in their off time. Who knows? As far as you go, Sam, is this all basketball, or you get a chance to get to any other events? I mean, I know you're working, but how's your schedule going to be?
TBD. I'm not sure, my friend. It's the thing with Lille and that kind of geography challenge.
Yeah.
It makes it a little tougher to jump in on the other sports. That could change a bit when I come to Paris. I think the 4th to the 12th I'll be down in Paris for the medal rounds, and maybe it'll be a little bit different. But yeah, focusing on hoops. I mean, I've only done the Olympics one time before, which was in Rio, and I hope to replicate some of those experiences, because I remember watching Michael Phelps's last race, watching, I think it was Venus, and I hope I'm not getting that wrong, but one of the Williams sisters do her thing on the tennis court, and interviewing Simone Biles. I had one day, and I had a different job back then. This was for USA Today. But, I remember I wrote a column on Gabby Douglas and kind of, what her Olympic experience was like. So it is neat to see, some of the best in these other sports and these other kind of spaces that I don't get too often. So hopefully I can do some of that.
Well, I know you've been away, didn't really get a chance to get out to Vegas and Summer League and some of the other stories going on, but the one that has been looming out there, just would love your thought on the new television deal, and still some finer points that may be going on with a lawsuit potentially from TNT, but just a massive deal for NBC, ESPN, Amazon. What's your take on that?
I mean, expected, we've known for months, of course, that this was, unofficially done. They were just kind of crossing T's and dotting I's. Little kind of late plot twist that ultimately I don't think, and I'm not a legal expert, but I don't get the sense is going to materially change anything when you had TNT publicly indicating that they had exercised their right to match the Amazon Prime portion of the offer, and then the NBA fairly quickly announcing that they didn't fully match and that they plan on going with Amazon. So feel for all the people at Turner and NBA TV and, friends and colleagues of mine who are now facing some uncertainty there. And as the more kind of spotlighted part of this is the end of the Inside the NBA run that's been so incredible. I would highly recommend for folks who enjoy the show to read the column from our David Aldridge, who spent a very long time being featured on that show. DA wrote a great piece just going down memory lane about Inside the NBA and what it's meant to the game and to the audience. So that part of it is certainly a sad, subplot, if you will. The rest of it, I'm just fascinated to see, in terms of the consumers and the fans, how does everybody feel about things, 4 or 5 years from now when it's, the streaming reality that it comes with today's era where, even myself, I don't have Peacock, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's like, all right, I guess I got to get Peacock, and go down. I have Amazon and, certainly have ESPN, but the kind of fragmentation of the experience, it's growth for sure for the NBA, but it's a very different experience than the mid 80s and the early 90s when 15 million people are turning on NBC to watch the NBA finals.
Right. Constant adjustment, that's for sure. Sam, always appreciate checking in with you. Thank you so much for taking time for us. I know this was very nice of you on your working time out there. Enjoy your time, safe journeys home, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Jay. Be good, my friend.
All right, thank you. Sam Amick. Incredible stuff there with Team USA. As he said, Steve Kerr basically calling out Team USA. Time for more intensity. We'll see as they wait on Kevin Durant.